This episode, we're going to be talking to Richard Naylor. Richard is a very experienced facilities manager for law firm Forsters, LLP in central London, actually in Mayfair, very posh offices in Mayfair. Let's see what he's got to say. Welcome. Hello, Richard. How are you doing?
I'm okay, Jill. How are you?
Yeah. I'm good. It's all very strange, but I am good. So just to welcome and introduce you today, this is Richard Naylor. Richard is a facilities manager at Forsters LLP in London. You're a law firm.
Yeah.
How long have we known each other, Richard? It's quite some time, isn't it?
Some time. I would suggest from the H&S days. So it's probably about 20 odd years, 22 years.
Yeah, that is a lot.
It is a lot. It's most of my facilities career.
I know. Richard is one of those wonderful clients that takes you with them. And that's the best kind of clients to have. So as you've moved on from place to place, you've taken Workwise Ergonomics as a business with you. So I'm very grateful for that. That is just been brilliant. But we've done some good stuff together over the years, I think, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been great having someone to be able to call on who you know will give you the right advice in relation to DSE and general workplace setup stuff. And it's interesting for me as somebody who has trained as an FM and has done his health and safety qualifications and then gone through to assessor status as a DSE assessor, to have somebody that I can call on for advice rather than having to say, oh, Jill, you need to do all of my DSE. I'm quite capable of doing some myself, standard assessments, general assessments. But to have someone that we've got a relationship where I can just kind of pick your brains is really useful. Yeah.
Good. And we try and keep it just sort of sensible, pragmatic, not over the top. And I think if I can say this, it's a bit like having a favourite child, but my favourite sort of clients are FMs, really. Don't tell the HR or health and safety people that, but just because you are just straightforward and normal and, you're all sort of pretty much the same in the nicest possible way. And it's just a lovely...
Yeah, you need to be fairly pragmatic. Yeah, I think FMs are fairly pragmatic because every day's different. The things that get thrown at you are not necessarily the things that are just going to come at people in their regular work routine. So you have to think on your feet and you have to be pragmatic because otherwise it's not going to happen. People are people, and throwing rules at people and getting people to specifically do stuff they don't want to do, not going to happen. So pragmatism is probably an FM's go-to state of mind, really.
Yeah, I agree. And you're never going to be bored doing your job, are you? There's just something new every day.
Nope, as we have seen over the last 10 weeks.
We certainly have. That's a curveball. If you're ever looking for one, it's we've certainly had it. So how long have you been at Forsters?
Forsters, just under a year. Previous to that, I was with an American asset management firm as their European FM. I was there for 15 years, dealing with 5 London offices and every central European location. So, Madrid, Milan, Paris, Frankfurt, Poland, so Warsaw. Looking after all of those offices as well for that company.
So Forsters is quite a different operation, isn't it, really? You've got sort of central London, posh real estate.
Yes, indeed. Old real estate as well. A mix. That's unfair. We've got a mix. We're half and half. So 2 of our offices, our head office and another office, are Regency. Protected buildings. We have people come in literally every 6 months to look that we haven't killed a Regency architectural building, as you would want to do as a facilities manager. Rip holes in walls and get things working properly, but we have a restriction that we have various freezes on our ceilings that are protected by various agencies. So yeah, massive difference for me, because prior to that, big shiny glass boxes, city. Europe were mainly glass shiny boxes, although we did have a few. Paris, for example, was in a Regency older building. But the big difference for me is that it's a law firm, not a financial. That's a huge change.
But you've been in with law before, though, haven't you?
Yeah.
You worked for
prior to that,
6 years ago.
Yeah, prior to that, I was a medical law firm, and prior to that, I was in one of the big five. So again, big shiny glass box. The difference with this is it's of a size where partners have a say. That has its own challenges. Everybody has an opinion, and whilst if you were in a public company, for example, limited company, the buck stops with the head of the firm. Where we are now, the buck stops with every partner. They own the firm. It's a partnership. So it's hard. It's hard to get things done and get a consensus because everybody wants to get involved and have an opinion.
I think that's common throughout law firms. I don't necessarily think it's just the size of the law firm that makes a difference. In my experience working for law firms in the past, with them being a partnership, it is just like no matter how big they are, it's just like a huge family firm. They are quite different from that respect. Yeah,
we are absolutely a family firm in the sense that there is no real hierarchy. Everybody can talk to everybody. It's a nice place to work. But when a big decision needs to be made, then it becomes tricky because, it can be the person who shouts loudest gets heard the most, irrelevant of whether that's good for the future of the business. And so trying to work through that and trying to tiptoe through everyone's opinion whilst really having a vision that you need to deliver. And everyone's chipping in and telling you that your vision's rubbish and actually they want an office and how dare I suggest they get rid of their 100-year-old leather books, can be challenging for sure.
Yeah.
And it's nice to be in a position where, because of that family feel, you can actually tell them, you can say, look, you're being silly. Nobody needs 2,000 books in their office when they're covered in dust and you clearly haven't looked at them for 20 years. But lawyers love paper, so they're very wedded to paper. They feel comfortable surrounded by boxes.
Yeah.
And that for us was a massive challenge. And it's not a challenge we've won, it's a challenge we've made headroad into. But we haven't won it. We're not paperless or paper light, whatever you want to say. We struggle to get them to give up their paper.
Yeah, sort of along those lines in a way, just help us set the scene of before the world went mad, sort of where you were at. I mean, obviously, bearing in mind, as you say, law firms, they struggle to be paperless, but you were starting to look at some sort of agile working, weren't you? And you just had a big move. What was happening before it all went bad?
So I was brought in. I'll go a bit of a history. I was made redundant, interestingly, from my 15 years at a financial. They were an asset management firm that made me redundant, which was a bit of a shock, kind of. But you could see the asset management business changing, being disrupted. So I hadn't been looking for 15 years. I was happy where I was. I then literally, as soon as I was told I was made redundant, I put my CV out. Within a day, I had an interview, and within 3 days after that, I had a job.
Great.
Which for me was amazing because I got paid out. So I got a redundancy payment and then managed to get a job within sort of 3 days. So why was I brought in? So I had a lot of experience in fit-outs, both in Europe and in London. And that experience was something that Forsters wanted because they are still in flux with their property portfolio. One of the things that they had done is get rid of a period building and move into a more modern office type complex. I wouldn't say super modern. It was built in the 70s.
It's in Mayfair, though. It's still local, isn't it?
Yeah, Berkeley Square. So yes, it is a completely different environment to City. Ferraris driving around and nowhere to eat your lunch unless you've got a platinum visa or something. So they'd moved in. They hadn't moved in. They'd signed a lease for 30,000 square foot in a one floor plate type building, and I was brought in halfway through the design phase for that space. The remit for the firm was to go agile, or to dip their toe in a form of agile working. And you could call it agile, you could call it situational working. Ultimately, they wanted to collaborate, collaborative space. They felt that everyone in very small floor plates, all stuck together, no real collaboration cross-selling across the firm. And it's not a modern way to work, youngsters, I hate to use the generation denominators for people, but certainly they were very keen to have a modern, functioning, collaborative workspace.
So what did Agile working mean to them? You say that they were sort of just poking their toe in the water of it. What were their plans? Was it going to be a gradual change, or was it just some areas of the business that were going to make some changes? What were you looking at?
So they decided that we have a large commercial property department, and those guys are dealing with leases and the property projects for lots of people. So they were open to a flexible way of working. They understood the benefits of a agile / collaborative workspace. So as a department within the firm, and we have some departments that never going to really happen, you can imagine that you had, commercial property against private client. So private client are very based around the look and feel of an established law firm. And for them, that's an old period building. Property lawyers, we do deals like this all the time. We go to property companies, we go to other companies, and we see how they're working, and we would like to try it.
Yeah.
So we moved to one department, property, which are 170 people who were all up for having a go. Is that fair? They were grudgingly going to accept that this was the future and they were going to have to take part, but everyone else should take part apart from them, which we found a lot.
Interesting.
It's all right for everyone else, but not me. So I came in halfway through design phase.
Can I just interject?
Yeah.
Why? The people that were saying it was it's fine for everybody but not me, what were their objections? What was that based around?
I can't work like that. I can't work like that because I love fortresses of paper.
Yeah.
We to give you an idea of volumes, some people, if you look at a general archive box, 200 archive boxes in their area.
Yeah.
Stacked up all over the place, in cupboards, in various rooms, deal rooms, whatever you want to call them. And they needed them. I need them all the time. And it's a perception that they're comfortable in paper. And it's consistent. We know that. We know they feel as if they have to have those boxes and those papers to hand.
Yeah.
However, with modern archiving procedures, they can be back in 4 hours. So it's fine for everyone else, but it's not fine for me. Was a huge challenge to get people to understand that, there's ways around these types of things. We can put it all in storage and we can get it back in 4 hours if you need it. It's going to be too noisy. I don't work like that. I need my peace and quiet. All of those objections were going to be consistent throughout the project. And I got in there kind of halfway through design phase. And through my experience of building agile spaces for other people, we managed to create an environment which I felt was much better than the one they had planned, because they hadn't really understood the process of design. And why would they? They've never had anyone who has gone through that process. So their idea was hot desking, really, pretty much. We'll have a kitchen and we'll do hot desking. And it was a real challenge to get them to understand that isn't really agile working. That's just hot desking.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference.
There's a big difference. Yeah.
There's a big difference.
Yeah.
And it was trying to explain to them that, I like to try and colour it with the situation that you're in at the time. There should be a working environment for you to be able to do that. So I like to call it situational working because I think that fits the bill a little better than agile. I think agile.
The other phrase that's banded around a lot is activity-based working as well, isn't
absolutely.
it? So that's sort of describing what you're doing at the moment and making sure you're in the right position to do whatever it is that's right now. And in 2 hours' time, that might be something different that you're doing, and therefore at a different location. Absolutely.
Agile, I think, gives the impression of everyone can work from home or work in a coffee shop, which is true to a point. I think hot desking is it's a misnomer that it's going to be any good for anyone, in the sense that unless you build other things that people can use. So just having a load of desks that you share is not the right way to approach it. And that was something that my experience brought to that particular conversation is, look, I know you've already signed the lease. And I know that we are in space that we are considering to be temporary. 3 years is why all of our leases terminate in 2023. And we will, and are now, which is why I'm so busy at the moment sitting at home, is that project is still ongoing. We are still chasing the ability to bring what we've brought to property to everyone in the firm by 2023. And, that's a huge challenge at the moment, as you can imagine, but it's still going on, and we're still looking, and we're still engaging with the people we need to engage with. So being asked to come and look after that project from both a project management perspective and a strategic perspective in relation to how we're going to build that space was literally taking their plan, their care plan that they had, and destroying it and saying, we probably need to do this better. We probably need to design it. And understand that the design phase needs some inputs in relation to how we're going to work, what you see as a business is the way you're going to work, and we need to then address that and then bring that into the design phase. To a point we did. I was restricted in space, but certainly taking away desks, adding soft seating, adding benches, high-level benches where people can have a conversation. Plans, property use a lot of plans. So having large desks that aren't full of PCs, that they can spread plans out. Making sure that they've got quiet rooms to make phone calls, that they've got enough meeting rooms. They have a lovely kitchen that, doubles as both a informal meeting area, as somewhere where they can go and get a decent cup of coffee. And to be fair, that's quite an interesting one for me, is that I probably get the most kudos out of that whole project for the coffee machine. Which is
what's important to people, though, doesn't it?
I looked at what they were doing, and their coffee was awful. Now I'm a bit of a coffee fanatic, and have throughout my career been a coffee fanatic, and I've really kept on top of coffee. As we say, every day's a school day, and every day's different to FM. So learning about coffee is something that I'd never thought I'd done, but I did. I went to a course. One of the coffee providers put me on a course to understand good coffee. And that was the thing that got most people. The free stuff, the free fruit, the free crisps, the free chocolate, nuts and healthy stuff went down very, very well. But, the coffee machine was probably the thing that I get mentioned the most, not the hours and hours and hours of struggling over plans and who people are going to sit and, making sure that the M&E works and making sure that the project's delivered on time, on budget. No, it's the coffee machine. Well done, Rich. You've done a great job on the coffee machine.
So that's your biggest tip for any FM then. If you want to be a loved FM, just make sure you've got
coffee. Yeah, good coffee. The project was rushed. For me, it wasn't rushed for them. I came through halfway through. So we managed to address some of the issues I brought up in relation to situational working. And putting those things in for them so that people just didn't feel desk bound. They could move around the office, collaborate, talk to each other in environments that worked. And we got there. We got to a point that I'm happy, but it is temporary. So ultimately for us, it's a learning curve for that department, learning curve for the firm. And the biggest win, I think, is that the resistance, and there was so much resistance, from lockers to hot desking to noise to I'm not going to hear myself think. I need a special phone. I'm not using soft phones. I'm using this. I want to do this. All of it to them liking the space. They like the space. They like working in the space.
Do you think that's because you listened beforehand and you sorted out those practicalities? Or do you think it's because actually sometimes none of us like change, but once it's there and you realise actually that there's something quite nice about it. There's something, it sort of changes your entire life, change one aspect of your life, and that sort of has a ripple effect into others.
I think it's both. It's comms to start with. It's understanding your workforce. It's understanding their concerns and fears, addressing those concerns and fears as much as you possibly can.
Yeah.
Because one of the concerns was, I want an office. We're not going to be able to address that because we're not.
And that's very, very traditional. That's very, very traditional in a law firm. So many law firms that you go to, even now. I always think they're about that. They always remind me of the sort of Dolly Parton film, that sort of 9 to 5 Dolly Parton film, where your fee earners are in an office and your support staff are sat outside. It's very, very traditional feel, and that's still very, very common.
Yeah, and demographically wise, we've got a lot of older partners. And that's always how they've worked, right? That's always how they work. That's how they've worked since they, went through their law college.
Yeah.
They don't college law degree, I'm assuming. He probably wasn't at college.
Many
So to get them out and to get them working on an open floor plate was really, really challenging.
Yeah.
So you have to listen. You have to have your parameters that you're never going to budge past. But we had meeting after meeting after meeting with all different levels within the firm, from the senior partners through to the heads of department, through to fee and staff, through to secretarial, through to support. And we listened and we communicated, and we, when we had a design on CAD, we printed it up massively on the wall and showed everybody and listened. And people would, I don't like this, I'm not going to like this. And you adjust where you can within parameters.
Yeah.
So I think when people move in, they feel that you've listened and you've understood the way they work, and you've tried the best way you can to help them work the way that they do. An example of that would be lockers. I don't want to have a locker. I don't want to clear my desk every day. Why should I, when I'm paper heavy, have to move all my papers every day, put me in a locker? Now, actually, it's gone really well. We listened, we understood. And because this was a toe dip rather than a full-fledged agile working solution, we had the parameters to be able to listen. So one of the things we did, we said, well, okay, we are at a 1-to-1 desk ratio at the moment, although we're not now. Therefore, there's no real need to hot desk. Ultimately, we don't have to. We are going to, as a way of listening, we'll say that you can sit at a desk for a week. However, there are rules. We didn't call them rules, behaviours we call them, to try and get away from the fact that you can't tell a lawyer anything. They don't like rules. So we call them behaviours. That one sort of senior partner needs to sit on a bank, and then the rest are open for anyone to sit on. You can move, and we encourage you to move, but you can sit at a desk for a week. And then on the Friday, we go and clear the desk. Although we haven't had to do that, we've communicated that really well. That the desks will be cleared. There will be all your stuff will be shoved in a box, and we'll make it really hard for you to find. That has kind of kicked them enough to say, right, on a Friday we'll clear.
And how many people have chosen to move around? What would you say the percentage of?
80.
Oh, okay, that's quite good.
Yeah, it is, because where they were on very small floor plates before, they're now on one floor plate. We delineated the property departments because there are various different departments within property. We colour-coded their areas with screens and chairs and so on and so forth. And then what we said to people is that, we understand from a DSE perspective that you may want to keep your chair. We don't mind if you do, they're all the same.
Yeah.
And then we could monitor the different colours chairs moving around, and seeing that there was a blue chair in the pink department, or there was a purple chair in the blue department. And that was really interesting, because we were pointing that out to people on a continual basis, who were the kind of blockers on this. No one's going to move around. Why does anyone in commercial property want to go and work with rural property, for example? Well, they do, because there's cross-selling, there's cross-communication, there's cross-learning.
Yeah.
And that has shocked them a little bit, that actually the younger generation want to move around. In fact, half of them don't want to sit at their desk. They're more than happy in the kitchen or on the soft seating.
It's almost if you build it, they will come, isn't it, really?
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, some people hate it, and you have to have a bit of a thick skin, because all they ever do is complain. But, they're going to complain whatever we do. So we just have to manage that in a nice way, smile and ignore it.
Was there any home working in the mix then at that stage, or?
Yes, amazingly, we managed to give everybody a laptop. And it was interesting, because we had planned to give everyone a laptop who was going into the new space, and we budgeted for that, and that was fine. But then we found that actually the way that we were implementing the laptops meant that people who were sitting at desks back in other spaces would find it really hard to actually work. So the decision was made to give everybody a laptop. And that was about 3 months before lockdown. But unbeknown to us, we managed to keep well ahead of the curve by giving every single person who needs one, which would be all fee earning staff, all secretarial staff, most support staff, a laptop. So we introduced the ability for people to log in on their laptop wherever they are about 3 months before lockdown. And it wasn't planned. We didn't think we have to do it. It was forced on us by an IT issue. We found that, to go over to Windows 10, it made much more sense to give everyone a laptop than it would have to keep them on base units. So we were incredibly lucky that when lockdown came, everyone had the ability to log in. Everyone had the ability to get all of their files from our document management systems online, and that was incredibly lucky because we've heard of a lot of law firms that really struggled and are still struggling with getting people to work from home because no one's got a laptop. So the worst possible time for them, they've had to go and buy, 500 laptops.
Yeah.
And remotely implement a remote working system.
So you were all good to go, as you say. It wasn't planned, but you really, really were good to go. So there was a few people working from home anyway, and then everybody, I presume.
Everyone, So we've got about 450 staff.
Yeah.
And of those 450 staff, on any given day, I've probably got 3 people of my team in the office. Occasionally people are coming in a little bit more now as we get further and further into lockdown. But some functions cannot be achieved remotely. Post is a great example, right? Post, you're going into lockdown. It takes months to get a redirection. It takes months to bring in a company to have your posts sent to them and then they scan. So post was always going to be an issue for us, and documents, paper. So I've got staff in who are retrieving documents from storage, scanning them, sending them off to fee earners at home. Post is being scanned to fee earners at home. Bundles, court documents, wills, as you can imagine, are huge at the moment. That they are all being dealt with by my staff in the workplace, and we have rotated them in. Some have been put on furlough. We're rotating them round. We're not bringing them in 5 days a week. We're being very, very conscious that we need to do the right thing for them, and we need to make sure that they're comfortable going in. So that's not travelling at peak times. That's only going in 2 or 3 days, dependent. That rotates around, and it's allowing the flexibility to say, right, you're on your own there, really. Your post room operatives are on their own in a room. So actually, probably safer there than anywhere else because no one in. But those functions have to keep on because otherwise checks won't get cashed, documents won't go out. It's working much better than I think anyone thought it would.
So how are they dealing with the paper issue? Because obviously, as you say, you're scanning stuff, you're sending stuff out to the fee earners and support staff. I guess they need it just as much, maybe more at times. Are they coping? Are they learning to operate differently? Or do you think out of this there might be some sort of ability to work on digital documents?
It's certainly raised and highlighted the issue that actually digital documents would be brilliant.
Yeah.
And you are incredibly lucky as a firm to have staff that are motivated and happy to come in and work. Because if they didn't, we couldn't force them. And ultimately it would grind to a halt to a point. And again, we talk to lots of law firms. As you can imagine, it's very incestuous with every, FMs talk to other FMs, DSE people talk to other DSE people, law firms talk to other law firms.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of law firms are struggling with that particular part of it, is that most of it's paper. You're a very lucky law firm if everything's electronic. Everything. I mean, don't get me wrong, we've got an electronic document system that people are using. But deeds for properties, they're massive. They're huge boxes of paperwork with massive plans. Never going to get them electronic without spending an absolute fortune scanning everything in. So
now's not the time to be spending a fortune on anything, is it?
No, it's not. So making the staff feel comfortable going in was my first priority, right? Because I care about them a little bit. I don't know why. I do a little bit. They are good people. It's a good firm to work for. They've been there a long time. And I think that tells me, and told me when I went for the interviews, that, the people I've got in now have been there nearly 30 years. My postroom manager has been there 30 years. Most of the postroom staff have been there 25, 22, 28 years. And without them, we would not have been able to function. But equally, they were thrown in at the deep end. We don't really know how this is going to work, but we need people in. Yeah, hands up, we'll do it. And twofold, right? They like working. They don't want to put on furlough. And ultimately, that has really, really helped the firm. Just generally work every day. We get hundreds of requests. And how hard was it for them? Massively hard. Because, reprographics, their mainstay for the last 22 years has been copy this, print this, bundle this, folder this, make sure this is prepared to go out to clients. That's changed. Yes, they're still doing some of that, but a lot of it is, we left a document on our desk. Can you go and find it and scan it to me? Before, post was delivered direct to individuals, and if they wanted it electronically, their secretaries would scan it into the relevant file matter numbers. Now every single piece of post that comes in needs to be scanned and sent to the individual who's responsible for that piece of post. So they never had to do that before. So it's all very well week 1. By week 4, hang on, we've got bundles of paper everywhere because we're not delivering it anywhere. We're just scanning it. So now it's like, right, guys, you need to come up with a finance solution for it.
But that's amazing though, because you've sort of, I mean, I know obviously you've still got the issue of your bundles of paper lying around, but it does mean that every single thing from lockdown onwards is now digitized. You know, it's almost like, do you think that they can continue that? You've got a child in the background there.
I did have Harry just wandering slightly.
The joys of working from home. Hello, Harry.
Exactly. It's like the BBC reporter. Ultimately, do we think it's going to have to continue? I think it will. Now, twofold on that is that we as a organisation are looking at return to the workspace, as is everybody. You know, we're all being fairly optimistic that we are going to be able to come back to the workplace at some point.
What can I ask? What the mood is on that in terms of Forsters as a company and employees? You know, what's the motivations behind that? And I mean, obviously, you know, everybody wants to get back to normal, but you know, is there a real drive for that, or is it lukewarm from the employees?
No,
Have you got any sense of that?
It's twofold for me. It's the response of Forsters management, of the senior partners, and that has been incredible in the sense of we're not going to force people to come back to work. Why would we? You know, it's not fair on them. Yeah. But we will open the workspace when we can and allow people to come back if they wish to come back. So from a company message, the message has been fantastic, which is work from home. You're working from home. It's good. You know, productivity is okay. We're doing okay as a firm. If you feel that you want to come back and you're comfortable coming back, then come back. We've got a date for it yet. We're planning a date, but we don't know whether that date would effectively be in line with what the government are suggesting that we can do.
Sure.
But we have to have a date to plan to, and that's what we're doing now. We are looking at return to work and risk assessments and various other bits and pieces. But then you talk to individuals, they feel very comfortable in what we're doing within the office space. They trust us. They trust us to do the right thing. You know, we are a company that will do the right thing for people. So they know we've got the skills to be able to adhere to the government guidelines on returning to work. But we've all got to get there. We've all got to get to work.
Isn't it? You're in Mayfair. I mean, what on earth are you doing with that?
Yeah. And I think that's part and parcel of why they've said, look, if you feel comfortable coming back, when we open, come back. If you don't, then we'll accept and respect that, because, you know, we are surveying staff and you know, we're lucky in the sense of with a big property department, we're getting lots and lots of papers on return to work from all of the big property companies, you know, CBRE, Savills, everyone, all of them are producing all of this documentation. A lot of them are harping back to China in the sense of they are already back.
Yeah.
So what did the Far East do to get back to the work into offices? What have they had to bring in to keep people safe? So we've been looking at that, looking at the government guidelines. And our big challenge is going to be people getting on tubes and trains and wanting to do that. You know, we are contemplating masks for people, not for the office. We don't think we need it, but for travel, and being nice and saying, well, we found a product that is actually a bit better than a normal hospital mask. So the masks that doctors are wearing are N95s and N98s. I've actually found a product that's better than that we can purchase for all of our teams and all of our staff, so that there's some protection whilst coming in. I'll give them a plug because I think they're fantastic. They're a virus-static face shield, and it actually disables virus on contact.
And what about within the office? That's just on a practical level. What you're doing there? You mentioned something to me the other day about fogging. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so hospitals use a system, electrostatic fogging. Well, what that does is it if you've been to a nightclub Perhaps you haven't, but they have things called smoke machines.
Long time ago.
A long time ago, yeah. They have things like smoke machines. It's a similar product to that. It literally a very, very fine mist of a chemical which adheres to surfaces, and if a virus particle, is it a particle, I don't know, lands on it, it disables it. So, and it lasts for 30 days. So every 30 days we'll fog our offices, which gives us some degree of comfort that every single surface is effectively killing virus if virus touches it. Now that doesn't take away from enhanced cleaning regimes, touch point cleaning, social distancing, and we are doing all of those as well. So we're looking at air conditioning, what we need to do with that. We have already worked out how many people we can have in at any one time, based on a 2 metre distance between people at desks, and it's about a third. It's about a third of our workforce. Enhanced cleaning regime, so putting our cleaners to work and getting them to come up with, do we need to clean touch points every 30 minutes, every hour? And the government guidelines really do help clarify what that looks like. So, one of the kind of cornerstones of it is a 3-pillar system where you protect to start with. So the first kind of hierarchy of control, sorry, it's a bit of a health and safety mumbo jumbo coming out, would be protect people. So how do you protect people? Well, people need to wash their hands a lot. And if they can't wash their hands, they need to sanitize them a lot. So one of the first things we realized was that, well, hand sanitizer is fairly hard to get. So irrelevant of what the government say, we are going to need a huge amount of it. So we ordered that very, very early.
Yeah.
People need to be reminded to keep 2 meters apart. And if they can't, then what do we do? So we've introduced things like one-way systems. So where people would cross over normally, they now have a one-way system to walk around the office so that they would never cross people. They would always go in the same direction as other people. Lifts up, stairs down. That way you're not going to get people kind of going to walk out of a lift while people are trying to walk in. Signage on the floor, keep your 2 meters. Sneeze guards for reception. Do I think they work? Not really, but I think they give a huge amount of comfort for the person sitting behind reception. They have a big perspex screen in front of them. So, hand sanitizer, making sure that touch points are reduced as much as possible. And that may be that we take off the logging in of printers, for example. So at the moment, you need to go to a printer and touch the keypad to get your work. That may stop. So people may just be able to print and it comes out and they just go and pick up their print from the printer. Kitchens are a difficult one for us. We're struggling with kitchens on what to do. The government guidelines say keep 2 meters. But we can see a kitchen being a massive touch point issue. Fridges, milk, coffee machines, water machines, all of those things that people touch on a daily basis, don't really think about it.
Thinking about the government guidelines, I've been very sort of relieved in a way, I guess, that it's been quite pragmatic, sensible, straightforward stuff. And I think that all works really, really well, and we're all learning what it is and all that kind of stuff. But as you say, I think just looking at the risks, in our own offices, I do think you're right. I think the kitchens are the biggest area.
Touch points and kitchens for us are one of our biggest issues that that we're just trying to get through now. We don't really understand. We understand there's huge touch point issues. How do we, without spending thousands and thousands of pounds, get to a point when we feel comfortable that we have controlled the risk? So one of the things we're thinking about is disposables. I hate to do it from a green perspective. We are a very strong green credentialed company, but disposable cups, disposable milk, disposable sugar, disposable stirrers gets rid of a lot of touch points. It gets rid of fridge touch points. It gets rid of spoons, cups, plates, knives, forks. And interestingly, we are bringing in a specific risk assessor. We're putting our plans in, we're communicating with our staff, or we're putting together our documents to communicate with our staff. We've done our risk assessment, and all of that risk assessment has given us our control measures. And we are bringing people back off furlough, which is really good for me.
Yeah.
My maintenance guys will be putting all of that stuff in. The floor stickers, the stickers on lifts, the front door. We've got 2 entrances on our head office, so we'll have one in, one out, and we'll need to sign that, and we'll need to give people instruction. So to bring people back off furlough to get ready for the office re-gear is really good. They'll be pleased. So we'll be doing that in June. They'll be brought back for June to get the space ready for people to come back.
Richard, it sounds like all really, really good stuff that you're doing there. So just to wrap up, obviously, it's massive changes. There's always positives, within all of this. What would you say for yourself, for the firm, and for your industry that are the positives going forward? Okay,
start with FM, start with industry. Unbelievable. The profile of FMs has been rising for the last 15 years. You were a building manager prior to 15 years ago, right? You weren't a facilities manager. The industry itself, its profile and its importance has raised for the last 15 years, and there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
We are becoming more important than IT. We are becoming more important than virtually any other support service within an office, I think. Why? Well, we deal with the stuff that's going to stay, whereas a lot of people are dealing with stuff that's on its way out. IT 10 years ago was a massive server room. So you had a massive IT presence looking after that server room. IT now, not now, it's not now. You're on the cloud, you're out. Yeah. You're in a data center in Colorado, right? They're looking after your data. So what's happening with IT? Well, it's a software as a service. It's becoming the only person who's dealing with the infrastructure is FM. We deal with cables, we deal with data, we deal with access points, we deal with air conditioning, we deal with the stuff that's going to be needed to keep IT running. So IT, as much as everyone said IT, you'll be job for life. Not true. The actual IT infrastructure in buildings is pretty much now dealt with by FM. Unfortunately, with COVID, the return to work has been FM. It's been an FM function, and that has again highlighted skill sets that people kind of forget. That air conditioning within a building is a massive undertaking of huge technical proportion. If you don't understand it and you don't get it right, you'll be blowing that virus all around your workspace.
Yeah, it's funny. I said to somebody the other day that I totally agree with what you're saying about FM, and I think it used to be that this is the FM function and this is the health and safety function, and all right, FM and health and safety do often overlap to a degree, but I think they're just so intermingled now. I don't think you can separate them. I think anybody that's in FM worth their salt has to be full on health and safety now. They really do.
Yep. And
health and safety now comes from the practicalities of a situation.
And you can see that most FM jobs that are broadcast will have an element of health and safety in it. And I'm lucky enough to have gone through my health and safety qualifications and gone through my NEBOSH, and that's helped in every job I've gone for.
Didn't you get a distinction?
I did, yeah. I did get a distinction, yes.
Yes.
I don't know how. First exam I'd done outside of school, and I didn't get anything at school.
I don't know why I remember that.
Yeah.
Probably because I didn't. I got a credit. I was like, damn.
That was a real confidence boost for me, because my last exams were at school and I wasn't really interested. I was too busy partying. To get a distinction and to do well and to understand the subject has made me basically go for any exam I can. I'm a fire risk assessor, fire risk management, DSE assessor. I'm a trainer now. I've gone through all my training qualifications. So again, that kind of gives you an idea of where I think FM is, because I train people, I deal with health and safety, I deal with people with bad backs, I deal with aircon, I deal with buildings, I deal with leases, I deal with the future of what we are achieving within any workspace. So it's so varied, and more and more is landing on my lap compared to other departments. So I think FM's got a great future. For me, what do I think this has highlighted in a positive is that you can't really say I can't work from home.
No.
Moving forward, when everything's back to normal, I will be expecting that everybody understands that my work-life balance will be working from home a lot more.
Even FM, because I think that's one of the roles that I think probably before this people have said, maybe FM can't. They need to be in the buildings, but did you? And maybe you won't have so many buildings. Or in the same place, maybe all that will change.
Yeah, and that's very true. That this is a real pivotal point, I think, where if the future is more people working from home, what does that turn your offices into? Because it certainly doesn't turn them into desk farms. I think, what we're beginning to understand for us as a business is that the workspace needs to be nice, it needs to be useful, and it needs to give you something more than as if you were working from home.
Yeah.
So I think the situational / agile working piece will just ramp up. And it may mean that you don't have as many desks, but it will mean that you have collaborative areas. It means you have meeting areas. It will mean you probably take the space that you use a desk and replace it with other stuff. Attract people to your workspace, and to keep them in your workspace you need to be productive. And ultimately, we've proved that sitting there tapping on your laptop can be done at home. So it's going to be the functions that isn't sitting there tapping on your laptop. It's going to be the meetings. It's going to be the training. It's going to be the sessions that you have with other people. And clearly some functions will remain, post, rubrographics. You can't really do them remotely. You can outsource them and potentially they're remote. But I'm not one for outsourcing. I've never really been a keen outsourcer.
It's all sounding like a whole brave new world. It's
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's all sounding good. Richard, it's been so good to talk to you.
You too.
Thank you so much for all your insights, and hopefully we'll see you in the real world quite soon.
Yeah, exactly. Face to face.
All right, thanks so much. See you soon.
Thanks, Jill.
Bye. So that was a lovely Richard Naylor. I think Richard and I could probably have chatted all afternoon. We did chat for a good while longer. I think it just goes to show that even in the most traditional of companies and sectors, that with a little bit of thought, pragmatism, and I think more than anything, empathy with your employees, then even in that situation, we can start to look at new, more modern, more flexible, and just better ways of working. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon.